what I'd like to do tonight is I'd like to look at the start of Daniel's ministry. Daniel is taken from Jerusalem after Nebuchadnezzar lays siege to it. It says those in the royal household, captured and taken, these bright, young, intelligent men are taken away to Babylon. And they're placed with the Chaldeans. It says that they're put amongst them. And among these men are Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, and Daniel, or Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Belshazzar. It's interesting, isn't it? We always refer to Daniel by his Jewish name and the rest of them by their Babylonian names. And we do it because the Bible does it, and I don't know why, but I think it's interesting. So these guys are placed amongst the Chaldeans to be retrained, essentially. They have to go through a 3-year intensive re-education program, let's call it like that. They'd shown themselves to be bright, educated men, and they are to be educated in the language of the Chaldeans. Now, the Chaldeans were a group of people from southern Babylonia. You can see just Chaldea is that bottom green bit there, you see? And then Babylonia is the pink bit next to it there. But really, this is all one superstate, in a sense. And the Chaldeans had a king who was king of Babylon. So they become part of the Babylonian Empire. And at this point, they are an educated class of people who are in Babylon. They are skilled at astronomy and astrology, so therefore they're skilled at making things up. And all of that kind of things. And in some ways, putting these young Jewish men into this mix is a little bit of an insult to their faith. You know, they're going to use them, but they're also going to say, you know, all of that stuff about your God, we're going to throw you into searching other gods. But these guys thrive in it. Instead of turning to the stars, they inquire of God. And very early on, they make a stand and refuse to eat food offered to idols. And as a result, God prospers them. And they prosper in their position in Babylon. And we read in Daniel 1, it says they get experience in spiritual gifts of God. They speak with boldness before royalty. But remember, when we read this section in Daniel 1, this isn't necessarily chronological, what we're talking about. This end bit of Daniel 1 is a summary of their life. It says Daniel was there until the first year of King Cyrus. Therefore, the end of chapter 1 is a summary of what you're going to read as their careers develop. And my attention was drawn to a passage in chapter 2, because chapter 2 is right early on in their careers. They've had this stand that they've made about fruit, not eating food given to idols. And then we get to chapter 2. Daniel 2, verses 1 to 6. In the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His spirit was troubled and his sleep left him. Then the king commanded that the magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans be summoned to tell the king his dreams. So they came in and stood before the king. And the king said to them, I had a dream. My spirit is troubled to know the dream. Then the Chaldeans said to the king in Aramaic, O king, live forever. Wise men, they know that's the best way to start talking to the king. Tell your servants the dream, and we will show you the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the word from me is firm. If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you shall be torn limb from limb, and your houses shall be laid in ruins. But if you show me the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore, show me the dream and its interpretation. So, this is the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. He's the one who sieged Jerusalem and captured Daniel and these other guys. So if this is the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Daniel has been in Babylon for less than 2 years. Yes? Don't know how long, but less than 2 years. Now if you look at many timelines of Daniel in your commentaries in the back of your Bible, they'll put 3 years down as when this happened. But it can't be 3 years because it's only the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. The reason they do that is they assume Daniel's finished his training. Daniel hasn't finished his training. This is the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, which means Daniel is still a trainee at this point. An apprentice, yes. So the king has this dream, and he wants the interpretation of the dream. But Nebuchadnezzar, he's kind of switched on as a king, I think. He's nobody's fool. He doesn't want to be told what he wants to hear. It's leaders who want to be told Leaders who want to be told what they want to hear are the ones you got to watch. But Nebuchadnezzar doesn't want that. He wants to know the truth because he's so disturbed by this dream. So he doesn't just ask for the interpretation. He says, no. If you guys are as good as you say you are, you're going to tell me the dream as well. And of course, the Chaldeans realize something. They can't do that. They said, no man on earth can do that. So the king gets really annoyed. What is the point in having a soothsayer who says no sooths? So the king reacts really badly and really harshly. He sends out Arioch, the captain of the guard, to kill all of the wise men of Babylon. Now Daniel and his friends are part of the wise men of Babylon, trainees in the Chaldeans. So the guards come and they get to the point where they see Daniel and his friends, who at this point have never been involved in the discussion. They don't know what's going on. Why? They're trainees. They weren't called before the king with everybody else because they're apprentices. They're still in their trainings. And Daniel asks them what's going on. And Daniel responds to them. This crisis that is about to cost him his life by saying, book me an appointment. Daniel responds to danger with a step of faith. And that's the first thing I'd like us to remember tonight. When we are in trouble, when danger comes, it's time to trust God. But it's time to make that trust more than just feelings. It's time to take a step of faith. Daniel makes an appointment to see the king and says, I will show the king the interpretation. But here's something very important. At this moment in time, Daniel does not have the interpretation. He doesn't know what the dream is. He doesn't know the answer. He takes a step of faith. You don't need the answers before you take a step of faith. In fact, if you have the answers, it's not a step of faith. And the next thing Daniel does is he follows up his faith with action. He follows that step of faith with an action, and it's the very best action you can take. Prayer. He doesn't sit back, he doesn't relax and think, if God wills, I'll get off on this one. If it's the Lord's will, I won't be killed tomorrow. See, that's the second thing to remember. When you step out in faith, soak that step of faith in prayer. Give it to the Lord. Listen, when you trust in God, God requires you to pray. This makes faith more than just a vague, flimsy hope. It makes faith the initiator to get you on your knees. We must soak that step in prayer. Daniel 2, verses 17 to 19, we read what Daniel did. Then Daniel went to his house and made the matter known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Still using the Jewish names here. Not long we'll start using the Babylonian ones. His companions. and told them to seek mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that Daniel and his companions might not be destroyed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Incidentally, a lot of these wise men, probably at this point, already dead. Then the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision of the night. That's when he gets the answer. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. See, notice what Daniel does. He doesn't just go, lock himself in his room and pray. Daniel goes to his friends. He says, and this isn't recorded in here as words, so I'm going to paraphrase. Guys, we're going to die. And I've told the king that tomorrow I'm going to give him an answer to his dream. I've booked the appointment. I don't have the answer. Guys, please pray. That's the third thing to remember tonight. Never undervalue the importance of having praying friends. They say a trouble shared is a trouble halved, and I'm not sure that's true, but I tell you, a trouble shared for prayer is a trouble and the best route to a solution. God has placed people around you, around us. He's put us in a body of people, in a wall where there shouldn't be a razor getting between us. People who are willing to join us in prayer. People who are willing to take situations to the Lord, if only we'd ask them. When we pray together, when a message comes around the prayer chain, when the people of God are united in one voice, things change. A guy called William Law said, pray and let God worry. The biggest tragedy in church is when we don't share our needs. First, because we miss out on the prayer support we could have been having all along. But second, we start thinking we're all alone and that nobody cares. But until we ask, how are people meant to know? Daniel could have locked himself in his room and prayed, got really cross that nobody else was praying. But he never mentioned it to them. Daniel asked them. They prayed, and that night they got the answer. And all their lives were saved. And they were blessed and given gifts and given honor. But not only that, you see, this dream was an end times prophecy. Who was it given to? Nebuchadnezzar, a pagan, idol-worshipping king. To this man, revelation about the end of the world came from God. Does that mean Nebuchadnezzar was special? No. In fact, Nebuchadnezzar gets Daniel's interpretation all wrong, and I think that's in part what leads to him building the golden idol that's to come, because his kingdom in the vision is the kingdom of gold. No, Nebuchadnezzar's not special. God used the dream not to raise up Nebuchadnezzar, but to raise up Daniel. If the dream had come to Daniel, who would have listened to him? But after this, Daniel is given a position where people listen to him. Daniel becomes a man of influence. Daniel becomes a man whose words we're still reading today. And after this moment, God reveals loads to Daniel. All because of a king's dream. That's the fourth thing to remember. God is always working, often unseen, to have the right people in the right place at the right time. We have our part to play because Daniel took a step of faith. He got on his knees and he asked for his friends to pray too. But in all of that, God was working to raise Daniel up. Daniel couldn't see that at the time. He thought this was just about staying alive. But God works on a bigger picture than you can see right now. You know, Daniel could have felt hard done to when he was put in exile. But God had a plan for his life. Trust that God has the same in store for you. He will give pagan kings dreams about the end times in order to get the right people into the right place at the right time. God spoke to Nebuchadnezzar, but not for Nebuchadnezzar's benefit. Because what did hearing about that benefit the king? It didn't. It was for Daniel's good. God is working in the background to raise up those people who are willing to trust him and step out in faith. Amen. Amen. Amen.